This is the story of a man who went into the woods with his best friend and came back with a bullet in his chest and a fire in his soul. They called it a hunting trip, just two guys, beers, rifles, old memories. But one of them had a secret and a plan. A shot fired, a body left for dead. No one was supposed to ask questions. But he didn't die. He crawled through snow and blood, through silence and betrayal, fueled by pain and something colder than revenge. Now, the friend who smiled while pulling the trigger sleeps with one eye open, because the man he buried in the forest didn't stay dead, and he's not coming back for justice. He's coming back to make him remember. The last thing I remember before the shot was the snow crunching under our boots, and Greg laughing about something dumb I'd said. It was cold, not just the weather, but the kind of cold that sinks into your skin when you're too far from the world and too close to something that wants you gone. We were out past Black Elk Ridge, deep into the Wyoming wilderness. Just two friends. That's what it was supposed to be. We'd known each other since 6th grade. Greg had been the kind of guy everyone liked. Big smile, bigger laugh, always carried the room. And me? I was the quiet one, the guy in the background. It had always been that way. But people like Greg, they get tired of carrying others. They want to shed their shadows. We'd brought beer, rifles, and a portable heater for the cabin. The plan was simple. A long weekend, some hunting, drink till the stars blur, wake up, hike, shoot some deer, maybe get a coyote. We didn't bring a third person. Greg said it would be better that way, just us, like old times. I should have known. He shot me just past the bend by the frozen stream, said he saw movement behind me. That's what he'd say if anyone ever asked. But no one was going to ask. Because as soon as I hit the ground, gasping, choking on the sharp steel fire that tore through my chest, he walked over and looked down at me. No panic, no horror, just that same damn grin. "You'll understand one day," he said. Then he knelt, took the GPS out of my pack, patted my coat like I was a dog, and walked off. I heard the crunch of his boots fade into the trees. And then, nothing. Just the snow. Just the sound of my blood seeping into the earth. I don't know how long I lay there. An hour? 2? Long enough for the cold to chew through my coat and settle into the marrow of my bones. I couldn't breathe right. The bullet hadn't gone out the other side. It sat there, heavy, deep, somewhere between ribs and ruin. My left arm wouldn't move right. My mouth tasted metal and mud. But I wasn't dead. And if I wasn't dead, I wasn't done. I don't remember standing, just crawling, digging my fingers into the snow, dragging my body like some wounded animal. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Every sound was wasted heat. The trees stretched forever, pines like tombstones, the sky dull and gray. I followed the sun the best I could. South, always south. Greg had taken the truck, the GPS, my phone, but he'd forgotten one thing. I knew this forest better than he did. 3 years ago, we'd hiked it together for a month during spring thaw, mapping trails, testing gear. It was my idea to log the unmarked paths. I remembered every turn. Every deer trail, every bluff. Pain was a constant now, not sharp, not stabbing, just there, like a mouth pressed into my chest, sucking the warmth from my core. I talked to it sometimes, called it the hole, promised it fire when this was done. By the time I hit the Ranger Road, I was more ghost than man, face blue, fingers black, snow crusted over the bullet wound like a mock bandage. I stood up, stumbled twice, then dropped in front of a rusted water tank, just off a road nobody used in winter. That's where the old trapper found me. Name was Alan, retired firefighter turned recluse. He didn't ask questions, just dragged me inside his shack, stoked the stove, poured whiskey down my throat till I coughed blood, then sat there watching me like he'd seen this before. "You got death on you," he said, "but not the kind that wins." I stayed there 2 weeks, never left the cot. Fever dreams and black snow. Alan didn't try to pull the bullet. Said I'd die on the table. It's deep, real deep. You move right, it'll seal around the bone. You move wrong, and it opens like a scream. He gave me something stronger than painkillers. Taught me how to breathe past the fire. Then he handed me an old mirror and said, "Look." I didn't recognize the face. Half my beard was frozen off, skin tight like leather, eyes sunk and yellow, a death mask. But I smiled, first time since the shot, because I was still here. When I could walk, I asked Alan for a favor. Told him not to tell anyone. No cops, no hospitals, no noise. He just nodded. "Some men leave a trail," he said. "You? You're burning one." I left the shack in March. The snow was melting, but the cold wasn't gone. I carried a duffel. Nothing inside but spare clothes, a map, and a photo of Greg from high school. He was giving the finger, wearing my dad's old camouflage jacket, the same one he wore when he shot me. Every time I looked at it, I felt the hole in my chest throb. I didn't head home. Home was a trap. Friends, family, questions. Greg would have already told them I'd slipped on ice. Got swept by the river. A tragic accident. Closed casket. He'd cry, maybe even give a speech. I went the other way. Small towns, dead roads. I found work gutting fish at a cannery in Montana. Paid under the table. Nights were hard. Sleep came in flashes. Sometimes I'd wake up choking, trying to dig the bullet out with my fingers. But I got stronger. I started training with a guy named Carlos, ex-military, taught self-defense to drunks who wanted to feel tough. He didn't ask why I practiced every day like I had something to prove. He saw the scar once, said it looked like a starfish. I told him it was a reminder. "Of what?" he asked. "That I'm not done yet." Summer came, then fall. I worked, saved, trained, learned how to shoot left hand, bought gear, dug into Greg's life through quiet calls and burner emails. He'd moved to Denver, got promoted, bought a house, even started dating a girl we used to know in high school. And it was all perfect. Of course it was. People like Greg never fall. Not until someone knocks the ground out from under them. When I finally stepped into Denver in early winter, the pain in my chest had dulled. Not gone, never gone, but manageable, like a dog on a leash. It kept me company. I found a shitty apartment 3 blocks from Greg's office building. Tinted windows, 3rd floor, overlooked the parking lot. I watched him come and go every day. He still wore my dad's jacket. Every time he smiled, I remembered the snow in my mouth, the burn in my ribs, the look on his face when he pulled the trigger. He hadn't changed, but I had. And now? Now it was my turn. I didn't make a move for the first month. Every day I sat by the window with the lights off and a notebook in my lap, mapping his life. Greg was a creature of habit. He got to work at 7:15, left around 6. Tuesdays and Thursdays he hit the same gym. Fridays he drank with coworkers at a bar called Mad Dogs, the kind of place where the floor stuck to your boots and no one noticed a face in the shadows. Amber came over sometimes. She still wore her hair in that loose braid she used to flip over her shoulder in high school. She was kind then, sweet. Didn't belong in this story, not really, but she'd chosen him. That made her part of it. One night I followed them to a fancy restaurant, watched Greg hold the door for her, pull out her chair, pretend to be the man he wasn't. The same hands that fed her wine had left me for dead. I didn't eat that night, just watched. Every detail mattered. How he parked, where he hid his spare keys, which security company he used. I learned his passwords, his codes, his secrets. Greg wasn't careful. Men like him never are. They think betrayal is the end of the story. But for me, it was where everything started. By mid-January, I had everything I needed. Still, I waited. It wasn't enough to hurt him. He had to feel it, had to carry it in his gut, the way I carried his bullet. The first time I stepped inside his house, it was empty. I let myself in with a copy of his key, left the lights off. It smelled like cedar and mint. Neat. Perfect. Fake. I stood in the center of the living room for 20 minutes, just listening to the hum of the fridge. I didn't steal anything, didn't break anything. I just left a photo of him in the woods tucked under his pillow. That was the first crack. A week later, I left another, a bloody scrap of the jacket I wore the day he shot me, cut it from what was left, sewn into the lining of his own coat when he wasn't home. The third time, I left nothing at all. Just moved things an inch to the left. A bottle in the kitchen, a shoe in the hallway, the kind of stuff that makes a man doubt his own memory. I watched him unravel slowly. First the frown, then the late nights, the stiff drinks, the way he double-checked the locks every time he came home. He even went to the police once. But what was he going to say? That his dead best friend was stalking him? They took a report, nothing more. The police don't chase ghosts. He installed cameras after that, changed the locks, bought a gun. I smiled when I saw it tucked into his waistband at the gas station. The same model he used on me, different serial, same intent. He wanted to be ready. But you can't prepare for what you buried. By February, Amber was sleeping at her place more often. The cracks in Greg's armor had widened into gaps. He looked over his shoulder constantly, jerked at every loud noise, stared too long at strangers. He was rotting from the inside, and I hadn't even touched him yet. It wasn't time. Not yet. First, I had to take what mattered. He had a sister, Jessica, younger by 3 years, lived in Oregon. We hadn't talked much in school, but I remembered her laugh. And I remembered what she meant to him. She was the only person he never lied to. I didn't hurt her. He didn't go near her. He just sent a package. Inside was a photo of Greg holding the rifle, standing over me like he'd just bagged a 10-point buck. I'd taken it with a wildlife cam I'd hidden on a tree months before the trip, just for fun. Turned out to be the only witness I had. Jessica didn't call him. Didn't text, just posted something vague online, something about people not being who they seem. Greg deleted his own accounts the next day. Then he started missing work. It was time. I waited until the first real storm hit the city. Roads were slick, sky bruised with clouds. Perfect cover. I walked into his house at midnight. He was passed out on the couch, whiskey bottle loose in his grip, the TV glowing soft blue across his face. I stood there, breathing slow, watching him twitch in sleep, probably dreaming of snow and screams. The gun was on the coffee table. I didn't touch it. Instead, I took a match from my coat, lit it, and dropped it on the carpet beside him. Not to burn the place down, just enough to wake him with panic. He jolted up, stamping it out, coughing on the smoke. When he looked up, I was sitting in the armchair across from him. His mouth opened, then shut, his face drained white. "You're dead," he whispered. I tapped my chest, where the scar pulsed under the coat. "Almost." He reached for the gun. I let him hold it, shake with it, point it at me like that would fix anything. "What do you want?" he asked. I smiled. Same way he did that day in the woods. Close. He didn't shoot. Couldn't. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. "You don't understand," he said. Look, it wasn't supposed to be like that. You were going to die, fast, no pain." I stood, but I didn't. He backed into the wall. It was money, insurance. You didn't have family, no one to claim it. I was broke, I was drowning. You don't know what it's like. I took off my coat. The blood-stiff fabric made a sound like tearing paper. My shirt stuck to my chest. Underneath, the wound was still there. Ugly, raw, still angry. "I know what drowning feels like," I said. "I just didn't use a friend to float." He dropped the gun, slid down the wall, clutching his knees. "I thought you'd be gone by now," he said. I knelt beside him. "You don't get to decide when I leave." He cried. I watched. It didn't move me. It didn't matter. because this was never about forgiveness. I stood and walked to the fireplace, picked up the fire poker, heavy, iron, honest. He flinched when I came back. "I want you to remember this feeling," I said. "Please," he said, but I wasn't asking. The first blow shattered his kneecap. He screamed so loud I thought the windows might break. The second took his hand. The third, I stopped counting. By the time I was done, he was breathing, but barely, the kind of breath that sounds like the end. I leaned close and whispered, "I carried your bullet. Now you carry mine." Then I pressed the same rifle he used into his chest, deep, between ribs, a mirror. He passed out before I reached the door. I didn't call an ambulance. Let him crawl for help the same way I did. Let him find out how it feels. I left the lights on, the door open, let the world see what he really was. Revenge didn't make the pain go away, but it made it make sense, and I was only halfway done. The snow came down harder after I left his house. I walked through it like it owed me something, coat soaked with sweat and blood, boots sinking deep into the street slush. My ribs ached from the cold, from the movement, from memory. But the pain had a rhythm now, a companion. It beat in time with each step, not a burden anymore, just proof I was still here. I didn't look back. Greg wasn't dead, that would have been easy. No, he needed to live. He needed to wake up every day knowing what it felt like to be discarded, helpless, forgotten. I found a cheap motel on the edge of the city, one of those places where no one asks questions if you pay cash and keep the noise down. I stripped down in the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and peeled the bandage off my chest. It had opened again. Not fully, just a thin red smile beneath the old scar. Felt like the bullet inside me was grinning. I cleaned it with vodka, bit down on a rag, and wrapped it tight. The pain brought a kind of clarity, that edge I needed. Greg didn't go to the hospital that night. I checked. Maybe he thought he'd bleed out before help came. Maybe he hoped he would. But he didn't. The news picked it up the next day. Businessman found brutally attacked in home. They aired old photos of him, interviews with coworkers who said he'd been paranoid lately, acting strange, talking about being followed. No suspects. No leads. No idea. He vanished from the public eye after that. No work. No Amber. Nothing. For the next 3 weeks, I tracked silent, until I found a trail. It started with a car registered to a fake name, rented 2 states over, same pattern as always, Greg thinking he was 1 step ahead. But paranoia makes people sloppy. He bought a burner phone, but used a credit card to top it off. Logged into an old email he thought no one remembered. I traced it to an address outside of Leadville. A cabin. Isolated. Cold. Too familiar. The irony burned like whiskey. He'd gone back to the woods. Somewhere in that cracked mind of his, maybe he thought returning to the scene would undo it all, like some kind of full circle would bring peace. Or maybe he just wanted to disappear. Either way, he was wrong. I made the drive in 1 shot. Took me 10 hours in a rusted-out truck I bought with what was left of my cash. I didn't bring much, just a pack, a hunting knife, and his old rifle, cleaned, loaded, marked with the dried blood from the day I took it out of his chest. When I got close, I parked a mile out, hiked the rest. The snow was thick, heavy, the sky low, trees bent like they were bowing to something older than us all. I found the cabin just after dusk. Smoke from the chimney. Lights off. I circled once, slow and silent. He had cameras, but none of them worked. Just shells, just fear turned into props. He didn't expect me again. I crept in through the back, past a door that wasn't even locked. Inside, it was warm, too warm. The fire roared in the hearth, and Greg sat in front of it, back to me, hunched over with a blanket draped around his shoulders. He didn't move when I entered. I closed the door behind me, locked it. "I knew you'd come," he said. His voice was weak. dry. I should have finished it when I had the chance, he added. I didn't answer, just stood there, the gun at my side. He turned slowly. His face was wrecked. The bruises had settled into strange colors, and the hand I crushed was wrapped in a cast made from duct tape and gauze. You win, he said. I stepped closer. Not yet. He laughed, a soft, bitter sound. Then do it. Finish it. You came all this way. Isn't that what you want? I walked around the room, looked at the mess he lived in now. Empty cans, blood-stained towels, a bottle of morphine on the counter, half gone. You remember what you said to me out there? I asked. He looked away. You said I'd understand one day. I paused, let that hang in the air. I do now. You thought you were saving yourself. I was, he said. I still am. I walked back over, dropped the rifle at his feet. Then pick it up. He stared at it. I waited. He reached forward with his good hand, slowly, shaking. When he finally had it in his grip, he raised it, pointed it at my chest. The same place he shot before. I didn't flinch. Do it again, I said. His hand trembled, his jaw locked. Shoot me, Greg. He sobbed. You think you can undo it? I asked. Erase it? You want the cycle to end? Then pull the trigger. Finish what you started. But he didn't. He lowered the gun. And that was the moment he broke. Not when I showed up. Not when I beat him. Not when I took his life apart, piece by piece. But when I gave him the chance to do it again, and he couldn't. I took the gun back, unloaded it, set the bullets on the table one by one. Then I leaned in close. You live here now, I said, alone, afraid. This cabin is your coffin. He said nothing, just stared into the fire like he saw hell staring back. You ever come back, I added. You ever show your face again, I finish it for real, and I won't leave a single part of you behind. He nodded, slow and empty. I left him there. Didn't say goodbye, didn't look back. Let him rot where he hid. And when I stepped outside, the wind hit my face like a slap, cold, hard, but clean. The forest didn't whisper anymore. And for the first time since the shot, I walked without limping. I left the cabin before dawn. The sky was still black, stars fading one by one like dying embers. My boots cut through the crust of snow, each step heavy, final. The trees were still, watching. No wind, no sound, just the crunch beneath me and the memory of a man left behind to stew in silence. By the time I reached the truck, my chest was on fire again. The wound never truly closed, not after all these months. It pulsed with each breath. Not a sharp pain, just a deep throb, like a second heart trying to beat its way out. I pressed a hand to it, not to soothe it, but to remind myself it was still there. I didn't start the engine right away, just sat behind the wheel, staring through the cracked windshield. I could have ended it back there, a second shot, a shallow grave. No one would have found him, no one would have looked. But killing Greg would have made him the ending. I didn't want an ending. I wanted him to live like I had, uncertain, broken, afraid to sleep because the darkness might reach in and drag him back to that moment in the snow. I wanted him to carry the silence. I drove west, back through the mountain pass, through towns that felt like ghosts, empty streets and dark windows. I didn't stop until I hit the edge of the desert, where the snow gave way to cracked red earth and sun-bleached sky. Arizona. A place where the cold couldn't follow. I found work fixing engines in a town called Tolleson. Quiet place, cheap rent, no questions. I paid in cash, lived above a tire shop, and kept to myself. The people there were used to silence. The mechanic, a man named Ray, hired me on the spot after watching me rebuild a carburetor in 20 minutes flat. He never asked about the scar, just nodded at the pain behind my eyes like he'd seen it before. Nights were hard, still are. Sometimes I dream of the woods, of Greg standing over me with the rifle, of snow turning black around my chest. I wake up gasping, clutching the spot where the bullet still lives. I never scream, Just breathe, slow, in and out, until the fire settles. I never went to a hospital. Never let anyone touch it. The bullet's part of me now, like bone, like breath. Some people carry regrets. I carry a reminder. I got a dog. Stray mutt with a torn ear and half a tail. Found him digging through a dumpster behind the shop. I named him Whiskey. We share meals and silence. He sleeps at the foot of my bed and growls in his sleep like he's chasing things he can't catch. Fitting. I don't talk to anyone from before. Not family, not old friends. I'm dead to them, and that's how it needs to stay. I left that part of me in the woods, buried under snow and betrayal. What came out wasn't the same man. I still keep the rifle. Not as a weapon, but as a monument. It hangs on the wall above my bed, scarred and stained. The barrel is slightly warped from when I jammed it into Greg's chest. I never cleaned the blood off. It dried in streaks like rust. Sometimes, I stare at it and wonder how different things would be if I hadn't gone on that trip, if I'd called in sick, if I'd made an excuse. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't need a reason, just opportunity. Greg took his shot because he thought no one would ever know. Now he knows better. The last time I checked, he was still alive, still holed up in that cabin, no electricity, no phone. A man unplugged from the world. He survives off canned food and the rare supply run. A neighbor once saw him limping through town and said he looked like a ghost draped in skin. I never reached out, never wrote, never called. I didn't need to, because he sees me every time he closes his eyes. And I see him every time I press my palm to my chest. We're bound now, not by friendship, not by hate, but by that shot in the woods and everything that came after. Some people say revenge is hollow, that it leaves you empty. They're wrong. Revenge filled the hole he left in me, gave it shape, purpose. I don't feel guilt. I don't feel sorrow. I feel finished. That's not peace. It's something else, something colder. But it's mine. I carry his gun in my chest, and he carries my silence in his head. And in the end, we both got what we deserved.